Oh, great question. Um, I've always talked about my 5 C's model, and let me talk about them again. The first is competency. I think anybody who wants to be a future leader should have a hip pocket skill that everybody looks at and says, XYZ is the go-to person for that skill. Because unless you're really known for something, and not just as a generalist, you don't stand out from the pack. But in order to be competent at something, you've got to be a lifelong student, because you've got to constantly refine your knowledge of that subject so that you remain ahead and abreast of everything that goes on in that field first. The second, I'd say, is courage and confidence. It's a pair. You can be very, very competent, but if you're not willing to speak out, if you're not willing to have the confidence based on your knowledge, what's the point, right? You just roll over. So courage and confidence are very important. The third is communication skills. You cannot overinvest in communication skills, written and oral communications, because as a leader, you constantly have to mobilize the troops. I can tell you when I first came to the United States, I used to debate and I used to be on debating teams, but I used to speak so fast because culturally I grew up in an environment where people spoke very fast. Fortunately, Yale had a requirement that unless you passed the communications course, you couldn't graduate from the first year to the second year in business school. I flunked the first time I took the communications course for a long, long time. And I've always referred to Doug as not just Doug McMillan, I've called him Doug McMillan Walton, because he represents the best of Walmart, the values of Walmart. And believe me, even though we're a generation apart in age, Doug, I've learned...
I'm not sure.
I'm much older. I've learned so much from Doug, the way he operates his large company and his repositioning. And so I think this is a two-person backslapping society, and I'm the charter member of it.
So as we think about what these people might be interested in or benefit from the most, the first thing that comes to my mind is change. And I know your business well enough and know what you're thinking well enough to know that you're facing a situation where the world is changing very dramatically, people are changing, the environment you're operating in is changing, and you're trying to position Pepsico for the future. So maybe we start out with talking about, what do you see that convinces you that PepsiCo needs to change, and what is it that you're trying to accomplish during your tenure?
I mean, it's many questions nested in one, but let me take a shot at it. I think every company today, the CEOs of every company, are looking at the environment, and it's sort of, the investor expects you to be this duck that's just sort of swimming across the water. And in the past, these ducks would sort of furiously swim underneath the water just to move ahead. Now it's like you've got to, it's actually liberating. Yep. When I stepped down, I thought it was going to be tough because for 40 years I've done nothing but wake up at 4 a.m. and just figure out how to rush to work and work 18, 20 hours a day. And when October 2nd rolled around, I thought I was going to feel like I was bereft, something terrible had happened to me. And then I woke up on October 3rd and felt light. And I realized that there is life beyond working so hard and so...
I assume you didn't wake up at 4:30.
I did. That I haven't yet. I mean, that part requires reprogramming. But, I look at this display of our waters and I say, wow, that's good, looks good. So, I'm still a PepsiCo CEO at heart, but I'm learning to step aside and actually realize that there's life beyond PepsiCo.
Yeah. Well, we could spend all our time today talking about life beyond PepsiCo, but when we broach the idea of a conversation about leadership, about any number of things that come to mind when we are doing these game changer events, Indra Noyee said, how about a conversation about the Asian family model? And we've just been talking about some thoughts and ideas you plan to share soon on this, and how that model can serve as a useful example in the United States as we strive for a work-life balance here. So I wonder, first of all, why that was the subject that you thought we should stress and focus on, and also what exactly is meant in your mind by that Asian model.
Thanks for asking that, Tom. Over the last few years, I've been talking a lot about work-life balance and how difficult it is, and whether women in particular can have it all. Sometimes when I speak my mind and tell the truth, I have as many critics as I have supporters. And some people will say that by saying that women can't have it all, I'm putting the cause of women a step back. Others will say, thank God you're talking about it honestly. But the fact of the matter is,